First contact and diplomatic tensions. The vast expanse of space had always beckoned humanity, promising adventure and discovery. But no one could have predicted the tumultuous events that would unfold when Earth's first interstellar expedition made contact with the Zarkonian Empire. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the ESS Horizon, Earth's most advanced exploratory vessel. Her dark eyes scanned the holographic displays, taking in the alien fleet that had suddenly appeared at the edge of the solar system. The Zarkonians, insectoid beings with iridescent exoskeletons, had arrived without warning, their massive ships dwarfing anything humanity had ever constructed. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the tension thrumming through her body. "Let's see if they're here to talk." The communication officer nodded, his fingers dancing across the console. Moments later, a harsh, clicking voice filled the bridge, translated by the ship's eye. "Humans of Earth, we are the Zarkonian Empire. Your species has been deemed worthy of assimilation into our glorious collective. Prepare for integration." Sarah's brow furrowed. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth Space Service. We welcome peaceful contact, but we are not interested in assimilation. Perhaps we could discuss mutually beneficial cooperation instead." The response was immediate and chilling. "Cooperation is irrelevant. Assimilation is inevitable. Resistance will only prolong the process." As the channel closed, Sarah turned to her second-in-command, Commander Jack Torres. "Well, that could have gone better. Get me Earth Command. We need to prepare for the worst." In the days that followed, Earth's government scrambled to mount a unified response. The United Earth Defense Force was hastily assembled, drawing upon the best military minds and technology from around the globe. But as diplomatic efforts continued to fail, and the Zarkonian fleet edged closer, it became clear that humanity was woefully outmatched. Sarah found herself at the center of Earth's preparations. Her experience with the first contact made her an invaluable asset, and she was quickly promoted to admiral, overseeing Earth's fledgling space navy. "We can't match them ship for ship," Sarah explained during a tense meeting with Earth's leaders. "Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. We need to think outside the box." President Elena Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "What do you propose, Admiral?" Sarah took a deep breath. "We need to leverage our greatest strength, human ingenuity. The Zarkonians rely on overwhelming force and advanced technology. But history has shown that determined underdogs can prevail against superior forces if they're willing to try unconventional tactics." She activated a holographic display, showing schematics for a new type of spacecraft. "I propose we create small, agile ships crewed by elite teams. We'll call them cutters. Their job will be to infiltrate Zarkonian vessels, disrupt their systems from the inside, and turn their own technology against them." The room erupted in murmurs. General Zhao, a grizzled veteran, spoke up. "It's insane. You're talking about boarding actions against vastly superior forces. It's suicide." Sarah nodded grimly. "It's risky, yes, but consider the alternative. If we try to fight them conventionally, we'll be crushed. This gives us a chance, however slim." As the debate raged on, reports came in of Zarkonian ships appearing near Earth's lunar colonies. The alien Empress, a being known only as the Eternal Matriarch, issued an ultimatum: surrender within 1 Earth week, or face annihilation. With time running out, President Rodriguez made her decision. "Admiral Chen, you have your authorization. Commence Project Cutter immediately. May God have mercy on us all." The next few days were a blur of activity. Sarah worked around the clock, overseeing the rapid construction and outfitting of the first cutter ships. Volunteers poured in from every nation on Earth, eager to defend their homeworld. The training was brutal and accelerated, pushing the limits of human endurance. As the deadline approached, Sarah stood before the first group of cutter teams. Men and women from diverse backgrounds, all united in their determination to protect Earth. She looked into their eyes, seeing fear, but also unwavering resolve. You are about to embark on the most dangerous mission in human history, Sarah began. The odds are against us. The enemy is technologically superior and vastly more numerous. But we have something they don't, the indomitable human spirit. She paced before them, her voice rising. You will be our surgical instrument, our scalpel against the Zarkonian threat. You will strike from the shadows, exploiting every weakness, adapting to every challenge. You are the embodiment of humanity's greatest strengths, our creativity, our adaptability, our sheer stubborn refusal to give up. Sarah paused, letting her words sink in. I won't lie to you. Many of you may not return. But know this, your actions, your sacrifice, will determine the fate of our species. You are the thin line between Earth's freedom and its enslavement. The assembled cutters stood straighter, their resolve visibly hardening. Sarah nodded, a fierce pride swelling in her chest. Prepare for launch. May your aim be true and your wits be sharp. For Earth. The response was thunderous. For Earth. As the cutters boarded their ships, Sarah returned to her command center. The holographic displays showed the Zarkonian fleet, an armada of technological terror poised to strike. But now, hidden among the stars, humanity's secret weapon was about to be unleashed. Sarah took her place at the command console, her fingers hovering over the launch controls. She thought of all that hung in the balance, the billions of lives on Earth, the future of human civilization, the very essence of free will that the Zarkonians sought to extinguish. With a silent prayer, she initiated the launch sequence. Across the solar system, cutter ships blazed to life, streaking towards the unsuspecting Zarkonian fleet. The battle for Earth's future had begun, and with it, a new chapter in the story of human ingenuity and determination. As the first reports of cutter engagements came in, Sarah allowed herself a small, grim smile. The Zarkonians were about to learn a harsh lesson. Never underestimate the human capacity for defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. The war for Earth's freedom had begun, and humanity's unconventional tactics were about to shock the galaxy. The outbreak of war. The initial clash between humanity's cutters and the Zarkonian fleet was as brutal as it was swift. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from her command center as the holographic displays lit up with the chaos of battle. The tiny cutter ships, mere specks against the vast Zarkonian cruisers, darted in and out of the alien formation with impossible agility. Status report. Sarah barked, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel's voice crackled over the comm. Cutter teams Alpha through Delta have successfully breached Zarkonian hulls. Echo and Foxtrot are providing diversion. We're seeing significant confusion in the enemy ranks. Admiral. Sarah allowed herself a small nod of satisfaction. The element of surprise had worked, at least initially, but she knew the Zarkonians wouldn't remain disoriented for long. As if on cue, the enemy fleet began to reorganize. Massive energy signatures flared as the Zarkonian ships powered up weapons unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. All cutters, initiate Phase 2, Sarah ordered. Hit their power systems. Let's see how they fare without their fancy toys. The battle raged for hours, a deadly dance of human ingenuity against alien technological superiority. The cutters, true to their name, sliced through Zarkonian defenses, wreaking havoc from within. But the cost was high. For every alien ship disabled, multiple cutter teams were lost. As the first wave of combat subsided, Sarah received a priority transmission from Earth. President Rodriguez's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. Admiral Chen, the Zarkonians have launched attacks on our lunar colonies and Mars outposts. We're getting reports of some kind of biological weapon. They're not just trying to conquer us, they're trying to transform us. Sarah's blood ran cold. Transform. How? The details are unclear, but survivors describe a parasitic organism that changes people, makes them loyal to the Zarkonian Empire. We're calling them the assimilated. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a war for territory or resources. It was a fight for the very essence of humanity. Understood, Madam President. We'll adapt our strategies accordingly. Sarah's mind was already racing, formulating new plans. As the communication ended, Sarah turned to her staff. We need to accelerate the Cutter program, and we need a countermeasure against this biological weapon. Get me our top xenobiologists. We're going to need to fight this war on multiple fronts. Over the next weeks, the conflict escalated rapidly. The Zarkonians, enraged by the effectiveness of the Cutter tactics, launched full-scale invasions of Earth's off-world colonies. The lunar bases fell within days, their inhabitants either slaughtered or assimilated. Mars held out longer, thanks to hastily deployed Cutter teams, but the situation was dire. On Earth, humanity rallied. Every available resource was poured into the war effort. Factories were retooled to produce Cutter ships and advanced weaponry. Research labs worked around the clock to understand and counter the Zarkonian bioweapon. Sarah found herself at the heart of it all, coordinating global defense efforts while also leading the space-based resistance. The pressure was immense, the stakes unimaginable. 1 month into the war, Sarah received an unexpected visitor in her command center. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, Earth's leading xenobiologist, burst in, her eyes wild with excitement and fear. "Admiral, we've made a breakthrough," Yuki said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "The Zarkonian bioweapon, it's not just changing people physically, it's rewriting their neural pathways, altering their very consciousness." Sarah frowned. "That sounds like bad news, Doctor. Where's the breakthrough?" Yuki's expression shifted to one of grim determination. "We've found a way to partially reverse the process. More importantly, we think we can use a modified version of their own weapon against them." The implications hit Sarah like a thunderbolt. "You mean?" "Yes," Yuki nodded. "We can potentially turn their own troops against them. But there's a catch. The process requires direct neural interface. Someone would need to get close enough to a Zarkonian to establish physical contact." Sarah's mind raced. This could be the game changer they needed, but the risk was enormous. "How quickly can you weaponize this?" "We have a prototype ready for testing." "But Admiral, the ethical implications." "Doctor," Sarah cut her off, her voice steel. "The Zarkonians are trying to erase everything that makes us human. Ethics are a luxury we can ill afford right now." As Yuki left to continue her work, Sarah turned her attention back to the tactical displays. The Zarkonians were pushing deeper into the solar system, their massive fleets seemingly endless. But now, a glimmer of hope had appeared. Sarah opened a channel to all Cutter teams. "This is Admiral Chen. I know you've all been through hell. I know we've asked the impossible of you, and you've delivered time and time again. Now, I must ask even more." She paused, weighing her words carefully. "We have a new weapon, one that could turn the tide of this war. But to use it, we'll need volunteers for what may well be a suicide mission. I won't order anyone to do this. I can only ask." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Every Cutter team volunteered. With a mix of pride and sorrow, Sarah began selecting teams for the first deployment of Project Mindfire, as the new weapon was dubbed. As she worked, reports came in of a massive Zarkonian fleet approaching Earth. The Eternal Matriarch herself was leading this armada, determined to crush the human resistance once and for all. Sarah knew that the next battle would decide the fate of humanity. Everything hinged on the success of Project Mindfire and the bravery of the Cutter teams. As she prepared Earth's defenses, Sarah thought back to the day of first contact, when the Zarkonians had dismissed humanity as easy prey. A grim smile played across her lips. The aliens were about to learn that humans were anything but easy prey. They were innovators, survivors, and above all, relentless in the face of tyranny. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was ready to shock the galaxy once more with its unconventional tactics and indomitable spirit. As the Zarkonian armada entered the outskirts of Earth's solar system, Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the flagship ESS Defiant, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching alien fleet. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "All ships, battle stations," she commanded, her voice calm despite the gravity of the situation. "Cutter teams, prepare for deployment. May your aim be true and your hearts be strong. For Earth." The response echoed across every channel. For Earth. As the two fleets clashed in the silent vacuum of space, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The cutters, armed with both conventional weapons and the experimental Project Mindfire, surged forward to meet the Zarkonian threat head-on. The battle that would decide the future of the human race had begun. The rise of the cutters. The void of space erupted in a dazzling display of energy weapons and explosions as the human and Zarkonian fleets clashed. Admiral Sarah Chen watched from the bridge of the ESS Defiant, her face illuminated by the flashing holographic displays. "Cutter Team Alpha, you're clear for insertion," she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "Remember your training and trust in Project Mindfire." On the main view screen, Sarah watched as a sleek, black cutter ship detached from the Defiant's underbelly. It was barely larger than a fighter jet, designed for stealth and maneuverability, rather than head-on combat. As it streaked towards the nearest Zarkonian cruiser, Sarah silently wished the crew good luck. Cutter Team Alpha was led by Captain Zoe Ramirez, a former Special Forces operative with nerves of steel. As her team's ship approached the massive Zarkonian vessel, Zoe felt a familiar mix of fear and exhilaration. "All right, people," she addressed her team. "We've trained for this. Let's show these bugs what humans are made of." With pinpoint precision, the cutter latched onto the Zarkonian ship's hull. Specialized cutting tools, designed to penetrate even the toughest alien alloys, carved an entry point. Within moments, Zoe and her team were inside the enemy vessel. The interior of the Zarkonian ship was a maze of organic-looking corridors, pulsing with an eerie bioluminescence. The air was thick with an alien musk that made Zoe's nose wrinkle inside her helmet. "Move fast, stay quiet," she whispered into her comm. "Remember, we're here to deploy Mindfire, and get out. No heroics." As they moved deeper into the ship, they encountered their first Zarkonian patrol. The insectoid aliens were nearly 8 feet tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the ship's strange lighting. Zoe raised a hand, signaling her team to halt and take cover. But before they could engage, one of the Zarkonians turned, its compound eyes flickering with recognition. It raised an appendage, ready to sound the alarm. In that split second, Zoe made a decision. She lunged forward, activating the Mindfire device embedded in her suit's gauntlet. As her hand made contact with the Zarkonian's exoskeleton, both human and alien convulsed. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Zoe's mind was flooded with alien sensations and memories. She saw the vast hive cities of the Zarkonian homeworld, felt the overwhelming presence of the eternal matriarch, and experienced the collective consciousness that bound the empire together. Then, just as suddenly, it was over. The Zarkonian stumbled back, its movements erratic. When it turned to face its comrades, its eyes glowed with a distinctly human awareness. By the matriarch, it clicked in its native tongue. "What have we done?" The other Zarkonians, confused by their comrade's strange behavior, hesitated. That moment of uncertainty was all Zoe's team needed. With lightning-fast reflexes, they subdued the remaining aliens and applied Mindfire to each of them. Zoe shook her head, trying to clear the lingering alien thoughts from her mind. "Command, this is Alpha Leader. Mindfire deployed successfully. We have allies on board." Back on the Defiant, Sarah's eyes widened at the report. "Understood, Alpha Leader. Proceed with the mission. And be careful. We don't know the long-term effects of Mindfire yet." As similar reports began flooding in from other cutter teams, the tide of the battle slowly began to turn. Zarkonian ships, their crews thrown into confusion by the sudden defection of their comrades, became vulnerable to conventional attacks from the human fleet. But the Zarkonians were quick to adapt. As news of the mindfire weapons spread through their psychic network, the Eternal Matriarch issued new orders. Zarkonian soldiers were now equipped with neural dampeners, making them resistant to mindfire's effects. The battle raged on, with both sides taking heavy losses. The space around Earth became a graveyard of shattered ships and frozen bodies. Yet for every cutter team lost, another would strike from an unexpected quarter, sowing chaos in the Zarkonian ranks. On the Zarkonian flagship, the Eternal Matriarch seethed with rage. Her compound eyes flickered as she processed battle reports from across the system. These humans, these insignificant specks, had dared to turn her own people against her. It was an affront that could not be tolerated. "Prepare the World Eater," she commanded, her voice reverberating through the ship's psychic network. "If we cannot have this world, we will reduce it to ash." Back on the Defiant, Sarah received the alarming news. The Zarkonians were moving their largest ship, a behemoth that dwarfed even their massive cruisers, into position. Energy readings from the vessel were off the charts. "All ships, focus fire on that dreadnought," Sarah ordered, her voice tight with urgency. "Cutters, we need a team inside that ship now." As the human fleet redoubled its efforts, a lone cutter ship broke away from the main battle. On board were the survivors of Teams Alpha and Bravo, led by a determined Zoe Ramirez. "This is it, people," Zoe addressed her team as they approached the World Eater. "Everything we fought for comes down to this moment. Whatever that ship is powering up, we can't let them use it." The cutter latched onto the World Eater's hull, its occupants acutely aware that the fate of Earth rested on their shoulders. As they cut their way inside, they were met with fiercer resistance than ever before. The Zarkonians guarding this ship were clearly the elite of their species, their movements precise and lethal. Zoe and her team fought their way through narrow corridors, every inch gained paid for in blood and sweat. Mindfire was less effective now, with many Zarkonians protected by neural dampeners. It came down to raw skill and determination. As they neared the ship's core, Zoe received a transmission from Sarah. "Alpha Leader, our sensors indicate the World Eater is preparing to fire. Whatever you're going to do it now." Zoe looked at her team, their faces etched with exhaustion and resolve. "You heard the Admiral. Let's end this." With a final, desperate push, they breached the core chamber. Inside, a massive crystalline structure pulsed with energy, feeding power to a weapon that could potentially destroy an entire planet. Without hesitation, Zoe and her team set to work, planting high-yield explosives around the core. As the last charge was set, a piercing psychic scream tore through their minds. The Eternal Matriarch herself had arrived to defend her ultimate weapon. "Foolish humans," her voice reverberated in their heads, filled with equal parts rage and disdain. "Did you truly believe you could stand against the might of the Zarkonian Empire?" Zoe gritted her teeth against the psychic assault. "We don't just stand," she growled, her finger hovering over the detonator. "We fight, we adapt, and we win." She pressed the button. The resulting explosion tore through the World Eater, setting off a chain reaction that ripped the massive ship apart. The Eternal Matriarch's psychic scream was abruptly cut off, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. As debris from the destroyed World Eater scattered across space, the remaining Zarkonian ships faltered. Without the Eternal Matriarch's overriding psychic presence, confusion spread through their ranks. Sarah watched from the Defiant as the enemy fleet began to break apart, some ships retreating while others simply drifted aimlessly. "All ships, press the advantage," she ordered. "Let's end this war here and now." In the hours that followed, the human fleet, bolstered by the heroic actions of the cutters, systematically dismantled the remaining Zarkonian forces. As the last enemy ship retreated from Earth's solar system, a cheer went up across the human fleet. Sarah allowed herself a small smile of relief, But she knew the war was far from over. The Zarkonians would be back, and humanity needed to be ready. But they had proven something today, that even against overwhelming odds, human ingenuity and determination could prevail. As rescue ships combed the debris field for survivors, Sarah's thoughts turned to Zoe and her team. Their sacrifice had saved Earth, and their actions would be remembered for generations to come. The cutters had risen to the challenge and had become the stuff of legend. The battle was won, but the war continued, and humanity, led by its cutters, was ready to face whatever challenges the galaxy might throw at them next. The turning point. In the months following the destruction of the World Eater, humanity experienced a brief respite from the relentless Zarkonian assaults. Earth, battered but unbroken, began the arduous process of rebuilding. The lunar colonies, once thought lost, were slowly reclaimed. Mars, which had held out against overwhelming odds, became a symbol of human resilience. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Council, her uniform crisp despite the weariness etched on her face. The chamber was packed with representatives from every nation, all eyes fixed on the woman who had led humanity to its first major victory against the alien threat. The Zarkonians have been pushed back, but not defeated, Sarah began, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. Intelligence suggests they're regrouping, adapting to our tactics. We must use this time wisely. She activated a holographic display, showing schematics for a new generation of cutter ships. Project Phoenix, she announced. Faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with reverse-engineered Zarkonian tech. But more importantly, we're expanding the cutter program. It's time we took the fight to them. The council chamber erupted in murmurs. President Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes sharp. You're proposing an offensive, Admiral, against an enemy whose home territory we haven't even located. Sarah nodded grimly. Precisely, Madam President. The Zarkonians know where we live. It's time we evened the playing field. As the council debated the merits of Sarah's proposal, light years away on the fringes of known space, a lone cutter ship drifted silently. Inside, Captain Zoe Ramirez and her team monitored their surroundings, every sense alert for signs of Zarkonian activity. Zoe's mind wandered to the events that had brought them here. After the destruction of the World Eater, she had expected to be reassigned, maybe even allowed to retire. Instead, Sarah had approached her with an offer she couldn't refuse. Lead a deep space reconnaissance mission to find the Zarkonian homeworld. A soft beep from the sensor array snapped Zoe back to the present. What have we got, Martinez? She asked her science officer. Lieutenant Martinez frowned at his readouts. Unusual energy signature, Cap. Doesn't match anything in our database, but there's something familiar about it. Zoe felt a chill run down her spine. Ever since her encounter with Mindfire, she'd been left with lingering impressions of Zarkonian consciousness. Put it on screen, she ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a distant star system. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, but as Zoe watched, she noticed subtle distortions in the starfield, as if space itself was being warped. It's cloaked, she breathed, memories not her own bubbling to the surface. That's their homeworld. It has to be. Back on Earth, Sarah's proposal had been grudgingly approved. The new cutter fleet, gleaming and deadly, prepared for its first major offensive operation. But as Sarah oversaw the final preparations, an urgent transmission came through. Admiral, Zoe's voice crackled over the comm, distorted by distance and interference. We found it. Sending coordinates now. But there's something else you need to know. Sarah listened intently as Zoe detailed her discoveries. The Zarkonian homeworld was indeed hidden behind advanced cloaking technology, but that wasn't the most startling revelation. According to Zoe's scans and her Mindfire-enhanced insights, the Zarkonians were facing a crisis of their own. Their hive mind is fracturing, Admiral, Zoe explained. Without the eternal matriarch to hold them together, different factions are vying for control. Some want to continue the war, others are pushing for peace. It's chaos. Sarah's mind raced with the implications. This could be the opportunity they needed to end the war once and for all. But it would require a drastic change in strategy. "Return to Earth immediately, Captain," Sarah ordered. "We're going to need your first-hand knowledge for what comes next." Over the next weeks, as Zoe's team made their way back to Earth, Sarah worked tirelessly to revise their battle plans. The cutter fleet, originally intended for a full-scale assault, was now being prepared for a far more delicate operation. When Zoe finally arrived, she found Earth transformed. The scars of war were still visible, but there was a new energy in the air, a sense of purpose and hope that had been missing for too long. In a secure briefing room deep beneath Geneva, Sarah laid out the new plan to her top commanders and political leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "we have a unique opportunity before us. The Zarkonian Empire is in disarray, their leadership fractured. We could press our advantage, launch a full-scale attack that might very well end the war. But at what cost?" She paused, letting her words sink in. "Instead, I propose a surgical strike. A small team of our best cutters, led by Captain Ramirez, will infiltrate the Zarkonian homeworld. Their mission will be twofold: gather critical intelligence and, if possible, make contact with the peace-seeking factions." The room erupted in a mixture of excited murmurs and concerned objections. Zoe, standing at attention near the back, caught Sarah's eye and gave a slight nod. She was ready. "This is madness," General Zhao protested. "We should hit them with everything we've got while they're vulnerable." Sarah shook her head. "And risk turning every Zarkonian against us. No, this war has seen enough destruction. It's time we tried a different approach." As the debate raged on, Zoe slipped out of the room. She made her way to a quiet balcony overlooking the city, her mind whirling with the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. She was soon joined by Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the xenobiologist who had developed Mindfire. "Nervous?" Yuki asked, joining Zoe at the railing. Zoe chuckled humorlessly. "Terrified, but also excited. I never thought I'd say this, but I think we might actually have a chance at peace." Yuki nodded thoughtfully. "The Zarkonians aren't so different from us, you know. Mindfire showed us that. They're capable of change, of growth. Maybe this war has taught them something too." As they talked, finalizing the technical aspects of the mission, the sun began to set over Geneva. The sky blazed with colors that reminded Zoe of the nebulae she'd seen on her deep space mission. Inside, the decision was made. Operation Olive Branch, as it was now being called, was given the green light. Zoe and her hand-picked team would depart in 48 hours. As night fell, Sarah found Zoe still on the balcony. "Are you ready for this?" the Admiral asked, her voice uncharacteristically soft. Zoe turned to face her mentor and friend. "As ready as I'll ever be. But Sarah, what if we're wrong? What if this is all a trap?" Sarah placed a hand on Zoe's shoulder. "Then we'll adapt, like we always do. But I believe in this mission, Zoe. I believe in you." The two women stood in companionable silence, watching as the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there was the Zarkonian homeworld, and perhaps the key to lasting peace. As Zoe prepared for the most important mission of her life, she couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged stronger. They had taken the Zarkonians' greatest weapons and turned them into tools for peace. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she was confident they would face them with the same ingenuity and determination that had brought them this far. The next chapter of the war was about to be written, and for the first time in years, it held the promise of hope. Resolution and aftermath. The cutter ship Olive Branch slipped silently through the shimmering veil of the Zarkonian homeworld's cloaking field. On the bridge, Captain Zoe Ramirez felt a familiar tingle at the base of her skull, a remnant of her Mindfire experience, reacting to the overwhelming psychic presence of billions of Zarkonians. Stealth systems holding. Lieutenant Martinez reported, his voice barely above a whisper. No sign they've detected us. Zoe nodded, her eyes fixed on the view screen. The Zarkonian homeworld was a sight to behold. A massive planet crisscrossed with sprawling hive cities, each easily as large as Earth's largest metropolises. Take us in, nice and easy, Zoe ordered. Remember, we're here to make contact with the peace faction. No aggressive moves unless absolutely necessary. As the olive branch descended into the planet's atmosphere, the team could see signs of the civil strife that had engulfed the Zarkonian Empire. Sections of the hive cities lay in ruins, while others bristled with defensive weaponry. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple signatures incoming, Martinez called out. They've spotted us. Zoe's mind raced. This was the moment of truth. Open a channel, she commanded. All frequencies. Taking a deep breath, Zoe began to speak, her words translated into the Zarkonian language. People of the Zarkonian Empire, we come in peace. We seek dialogue with those among you who wish to end this destructive conflict. For a tense moment, there was no response. Then, a familiar psychic presence washed over the crew. It wasn't as overwhelming as the eternal matriarch had been, but it carried a similar authority. Humans, a voice resonated in their minds. You are bold to come here. I am Zarlax, speaker for the Conclave of Unity. We have been expecting you. Zoe exchanged surprised glances with her crew. This was an unexpected development. Speaker Zarlax, she responded, we're here to negotiate a peaceful resolution to our conflict. Are you willing to meet with us? There was a pause, filled with an indecipherable psychic murmur. Finally, Zarlax spoke again. Land your vessel at these coordinates. You will be granted safe passage. Any hostile action will be met with immediate force. As the olive branch touched down in a vast docking bay, Zoe and her team prepared to disembark. Each of them carried a modified mindfire device, a precaution, but also a potential tool for communication. The Zarkonian Welcoming Committee was a sight to behold. Dozens of the insectoid aliens lined the pathway, their exoskeletons shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. At the head of the group stood a Zarkonian larger than the rest, its compound eyes reflecting an intelligence that seemed almost human. I am Zarlax. The lid Zarkonian clicked, its mandibles moving in sync with the words that appeared in the humans' minds. You have caused quite a stir among our people, Captain Ramirez. Zoe stepped forward, her posture a mixture of caution and respect. We hope it's a productive stir, Speaker Zarlax. We've come a long way to talk. What followed was the most extraordinary diplomatic meeting in human history. Over the next several days, Zoe and her team engaged in intense negotiations with the Zarkonian Conclave of Unity. They learned that the destruction of the Eternal Matriarch had indeed fractured the Empire's hive mind, leading to a philosophical schism among the Zarkonians. Zarlax and his followers believed that the time of conquest was over. They sought a new path, one of cooperation and mutual growth with other species, but they faced fierce opposition from traditionalists who clung to the old ways. On the third day of negotiations, as Zoe was explaining the concept of individual liberty to a fascinated group of young Zarkonians, alarms blared throughout the hive city. We're under attack. Zarlax's psychic voice boomed. The Imperials have launched their assault. Chaos erupted as the opposing Zarkonian faction began their offensive. Zoe and her team found themselves caught in the middle of an alien civil war. Olive Branch, come in. Zoe shouted into her comm. We need emergency extraction. But as her team prepared to flee, Zoe hesitated. She looked at Zarlax and the other members of the Conclave, saw the fear and determination in their alien eyes. In that moment, she made a decision that would change the course of history. Relay that order, Olive Branch, she commanded. We're staying. These people need our help. What followed was a battle unlike any other in the annals of warfare. Human cutters fought alongside Zarkonian peacekeepers, their tactics blending in ways neither species had imagined possible. Zoe, her mind-fire enhanced reflexes allowing her to anticipate Zarkonian movements, coordinated the defense with Zarlax. As the battle raged, word of the human stand spread across the planet. Many Zarkonians, seeing the aliens they had been taught to hate fighting to protect them, began to question their loyalties. The tide turned when Zoe, in a daring maneuver, managed to capture the Imperial faction's leader. Using her mindfire device, she established a direct neural link, allowing the leader to experience human emotions and memories firsthand. The effect was profound. The Imperial leader, overwhelmed by the complexity and depth of human consciousness, called for an immediate ceasefire. In the aftermath of the battle, as the dust settled and the wounded were tended to, Zoe found herself standing with Zarlax atop a high spire overlooking the Hive City. "Your actions today have changed everything," Zarlax communicated, his compound eyes reflecting the setting sun. "Many among us doubted that cooperation between our species was possible. You have proven otherwise." Zoe nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. "This is just the beginning," she replied. "We have a lot to learn from each other." In the weeks that followed, a formal peace treaty was negotiated. The Zarkonian Empire would withdraw from human-controlled space, and in return, humanity would share its mindfire technology, helping the Zarkonians stabilize their fractured hive mind. But the treaty went beyond mere cessation of hostilities. It laid the groundwork for an unprecedented era of cooperation between the two species. Joint scientific ventures were proposed, cultural exchange programs established, and plans were made for mutual defense against future threats. As Zoe prepared to return to Earth with news of their success, she reflected on the long, arduous journey that had brought them to this point. The Cutters, born out of desperate necessity, had evolved into a bridge between two vastly different civilizations. Back on Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Council once again. This time, her face bore a smile of genuine hope. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "I'm pleased to report that the war with the Zarkonian Empire is officially over. But more than that, we stand on the brink of a new era of galactic cooperation." As the council chamber erupted in cheers and applause, Sarah's thoughts turned to the future. The Cutters had saved humanity from extinction, but their greatest contributions might still lie ahead. In a galaxy full of unknown civilizations and potential threats, Earth would need its unconventional tactics and indomitable spirit more than ever. In the years that followed, the alliance between humans and Zarkonians flourished. The Cutters, their role evolving with the times, became ambassadors and explorers, venturing into the far reaches of the galaxy. They encountered new species, faced new challenges, and continued to push the boundaries of what was thought possible. And on a small blue planet, children gathered around their parents and grandparents, eager to hear stories of the Great War and the brave Cutters who had turned bitter enemies into steadfast friends. These tales, passed down through generations, served as a reminder of humanity's resilience, ingenuity, and capacity for growth. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once. It would not make that mistake again. For in the vast cosmic tapestry, Earth had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, not through overwhelming strength or advanced technology, but through the uniquely human traits of adaptability, determination, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. The era of the Cutters had passed, but their legacy would endure for as long as humans looked up at the stars and dreamed of what might be.